I have a 27-year-old female friend. We've known each other for 2 years, so I was 15 and she was 25. I've read that many parents wouldn't allow such a friendship, especially since it's between opposite genders and we're both straight. But can't this be a regular platonic friendship? It's a regular platonic friendship, not a romantic one. If your 15-year-old son had a 25-year-old female friend, would you allow that? Story 1. Do I think genuine, non-predatory relationships like that can exist? Yes, sure. Would I take the chance on that being the case for my son? No, I would not. Story 2. Context. Are you online gamer friends? Or did you somehow meet organically in real life? I guess the context matters. And then, what do you do with one another in your capacity as friends? Do you go on raids? Or do you go to movies? Story 3. Troll post. Original poster is posting in other subreddits where he mentions the female friend is 30 and then even 22. Here he says it's platonic, but in another subreddit he says they are dating. Story 4. When I was that age, the older women I knew had something going on in their lives, and they were using me to fill some type of void or they were lonely. Women in their mid-20s find men their age immature. So, being friends with a guy who is even more immature seems kind of suspicious. The only time I had a normal relationship with a woman much older than me was at work. I was a young information technology guy and would speak to women I worked with. It's possible that the woman herself could be very immature for her age, doesn't have friends around her age, and sees a friend in you since you are younger. If she has interest or acts younger, she could just be a slow launcher. Story 5. I found out my son was hanging out with a 25-year-old woman, and he was 16. I even asked my husband if I was overreacting to this friendship, and he said no. What would a 25-year-old woman even have in common with a 16-year-old kid? Around this time, he had started acting out, being mouthy, rude to his teachers, his grades dropped, and he worked part-time but was suddenly always broke. I found out she was getting him to buy her all sorts of things, giving her cash, getting him to do things for her like errands, and telling him he was a man and didn't have to listen to us. I put a stop to it. At first, he was furious and denied it all, but then admitted he was giving her hundreds of dollars. He went from $10,000 in his car fund to $800 in just a few weeks. It's not normal at all. A grown woman has nothing in common with a boy except that they're easy to manipulate. Story 6. How about we take the genders out of the equation for a moment to avoid any potential double standards from happening? So that would make the question, if your 15-year-old child had a 25-year-old friend, would you allow that? Honestly, for me, I think it would depend on a few things. What are the maturity levels of the two? How did the friendship develop? What is the general nature of the friendship? Is this person someone who would be a positive influence for my child to be around? Is the friendship causing my child to change? And if so, in what ways? I think if my 15-year-old had a good head on their shoulders, if the friendship developed organically, if they exhibit a genuine friendly connection, if the other person were capable of being a positive role model or influence for my child, and if there were no obvious negative changes taking place in my child because of it, the possibility of me not having an issue with it may exist. However, if I didn't think that my child was capable of the maturity necessary to have such a friendship, if the friendship started off as potentially something else, if it seemed like one of them were after something else, if the other person would not be a good influence for my child, or if them hanging out caused my child to change in negative ways, of course, I wouldn't be okay with it. It's not an easy thing for me to naturally want to be okay with, but I know that a lot of my apprehension is societally and culturally influenced. Therefore, I just have to remind myself to approach it from a more logical standpoint to allow myself to accept that such a friendship can exist, but to still be mindful of the negatives so that my duty as a parent would not be neglected. Story 7. I just cannot imagine what they would have in common unless they met through a hobby. I do not think I would try to stop the friendship, but I definitely would want to get to know the woman, and I would keep my eye on them. Story 8. Very weird. I'd be very wary of any grown adult who spends time with underage kids recreationally. It suggests some kind of grooming. Even if you don't think she is grooming you, it could just be very subtle. Could also be that she is waiting for you to turn 18 before making a move, but that's creepy in its own right, to be fair. In my opinion, she definitely has an agenda, whatever it may be. As many have said, if the genders were reversed, people would react more harshly. Society tends to give women the benefit of the doubt a lot more than men in these situations. But with the increasing number of women teachers who sleep with their underage male students these days, it's obvious that society can no longer do this. Story 9. Hell no. Why would a 25-year-old woman want to be friends with a 15-year-old boy? Sounds like some serious child molestation. Statutory rape is still a thing regardless of gender. Story 10. This is strange, no matter the genders. All you know is high school level stuff, and she has high school, university, college, and beyond. You guys are clearly at two very different milestones in your life, like really different milestones. This is all kinds of wrong. Story 11. This is so wrong. What could possibly transpire from such a relationship? One sees the 15-year-old as a little brother, and the teenager just can't help but get his hopes up that one day he's going to succeed. Story 12. You have to define friendship with this one. Are you all going out and hanging out? Or are you just cordial when you see each other and maybe just check in on each other and see how you are doing every once in a while? Story 13. What specifically does the friendship look like? Is it when you see each other, you chat and joke around for a few minutes? Nothing wrong with that. Is it that you spend a lot of one-on-one time alone together? I'd probably be uncomfortable with that. Story 14 depends on how you met, I guess. In some sports associations, that is not uncommon if you met through the club. It's definitely something I would be wary of if it was my son. Wouldn't want him to end up being president of France. Story 15 depends on how you met. If she is a friend of your sister whom you've turned to for advice or something similar, it's not a big deal. If she is just some random woman you've met, then yes, that's very strange. Story 16. Nope. Unless there's a very specific hobby you two share and you're only meeting in relation to that hobby, I'd seriously question what the older person, regardless of gender, is gaining from spending time with a child. A normally developed person in their mid-20s typically has friends who are around the same age and would also appreciate that the child should have friends their own age. Story 17. I would want to get to know the woman if it were my son, the same if the sexes were reversed. It all depends on how they met and the circumstances. Any signs of maltreatment or manipulation, I would be down on that person like a ton of bricks. I deal with kids and teenagers all the time, and this situation isn't uncommon where I am from. Treat all situations with a healthy amount of suspicion, but not to the chronic levels I have seen in this discussion. Story 18. Intergenerational friendships can be genuinely rewarding and healthy for everyone involved. Unfortunately, the association is often viewed as toxic, leading people to generally avoid them or treat them with suspicion. Story 19. As someone who was in that position when I was 15, I would definitely not allow that if I were to have kids. Yeah, ours was platonic too until it wasn't. It's a dangerous game to a teen's well-being that they don't even realize they're playing. Because as a teen, no matter how not dumb you think you are, unfortunately, you really are just that dumb. Story 20. Hey there, I'm a 31-year-old therapist, and I work with teenagers. You all are awesome and fun. However, it isn't common for teenagers and adults to have typical friendships, at least not like the ones you might have with others in school. Even though 17 is a great age, I would never actively hang out with a teenager outside of work. There is so much life context and experience that you gain as you age that you just won't have in common with her right now. It's concerning that she thinks there is. Story 21. Sorry, but at age 27, I did not like or want to be friends with a 15-year-old boy, unless it's like a mentor-mentee relationship or an aunt thing. But a regular friendship, I would be more suspicious of a woman who wants to hang around teenagers. Story 22. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I couldn't see how anyone my age could have anything in common with a teenager. Unless it's a mentor or colleague kind of friendship, I do find it a bit weird. Story 23. Need more context. Do you just play games together or something? And how did you meet? Personally, I am 24 turning 25, and in most contexts, wanting to be genuine friends with a 15-year-old makes no sense whatsoever to me, regardless of their gender. Also, your lack of answers and your post a day ago asking if it is okay for an 18-year-old to date a 30-year-old is incredibly suspicious. Story 24. Well, are there any elements of the friendship that have made you question the girl's intentions? Everyone giving the "I'm suspicious until proven otherwise" reason is doing so because there's unfortunately a history of predatory people lurking on teenagers. And yes, women can be offenders and teenage boys can be victims and often are. I'm not going to presume you're immature, but I have to wonder where your 27-year-old female friend's other friends are. Story 25. You will know the nature of the relationship when you turn 18. If she tries to pursue a physical relationship, she wanted to when you met at 15 but knew the rules. I am not the person to ask since I spent some alone time with a 45-year-old when I was 19. Story 26. I would not feel comfortable with it, and no, I would not support it. I would not be okay with a 15-year-old girl becoming close with a 25-year-old man. My responsibility as an adult is to protect you, and you knowing someone who can take advantage of you at any time is a huge no. Story 27. It's very concerning. Why can't a 27-year-old make friends her own age? I'm 20, and the thought of being friends with someone younger, especially that young, is so weird and predatory. Story 28. Really depends on your specific context. While yes, it could be a non-predatory, wholesome aunt-nephew type of friendship, but if I had to roll the dice, I would probably say she has some ill intent. Don't cut her off, but inform your parents casually about this friend, and also have a little bit of natural suspicion, especially if she starts talking about dating, sex, and so on. Story 29. I'm 25, and I have teenage coworkers who are my absolute ride or die when we're on the clock. Those are my buddies, and I've never really had any older coworkers who were kind to me, so I try to be the chill guy who can pass down my experience to kids who are new to working. That being said, I'd never hang out with them outside of work. If things go sideways at their home or they party too hard to get home safely, my door will always be open to them, but I'd never organize a hangout with one minor or a group of them. The closest we'll get to hanging out is adding them on PlayStation. Story 30. No, that's suspicious as F*******. Plus, having been a teenage boy, I know there is no way he wants to keep that platonic, no matter how much he says so. If the offer presents itself, he's going to go for it. On top of that, what is the 25-year-old woman getting out of this? A fun, mentally engaging conversation with a teenage boy? No. Again, having been one and having been friends with teenage boys and known teenage boys, it's not happening. It reeks of grooming to me, building a relationship prior, even if she is waiting for you to turn 18. Story 31. I think it's inappropriate for an adult to have a mutualistic relationship with a minor. Mentoring is one thing, but friends? I'd be suspicious of ulterior motives, but even if the adult genuinely just wants to have a platonic relationship, that points to the adult having some sort of developmental issue, and it just isn't right to lean on a minor the way a friend would. For example, I'm 23, and I'm not going to vent to a 15-year-old about my breakup. Story 32. Think to yourself, what 25-year-old wants to hang out and be genuine friends with a 15-year-old? When you were 25, you will look back on this and realize how weird it is and how you don't want to hang out with children. Story 33. I think how you met and the intentions they are giving off are important. When I was around that age, yes, I met men who wanted to be friends but were creepy, even subtly. But I also had ones who were normal and chill, just enjoyed time together, such as coworkers, neighbors, etc. No one in a position of authority over me. Story 34. What are the dynamics of the friendship? Are you together only when there are family members around? Do you see each other in public events or also in private settings? I mean, sure, a 15-year-old can have a 25-year-old friend, but usually the 15-year-old is really mature for their age or the 25-year-old is a bit immature. Story 35. When I was 12 to 13, I had a bunch of online friends of different ages, some adults. I had a good friend who was 22, and it was fine, but I don't know if it's in real life. Story 36. The age gap here does set off alarm bells, but we also have to consider situational factors. A shared interest in a specific activity or online community, like a gaming guild or a fan group for a particular show, could create a bridge between generations. However, the dynamic needs to be carefully examined. It's paramount that there is a clear boundary in the interaction, with the adult recognizing their role, potentially as a mentor rather than a friend on equal footing. While we can't paint every situation with the same brush, it's prudent to question the nature of the association. Healthy relationships respect age-appropriate boundaries, and the adult should have the wisdom to maintain them. Transparency with parents or guardians is also key to ensure the younger party's well-being. Story 37. You all are focusing on gender, but I would be suspicious if a 25-year-old man wanted to spend time with a 15-year-old boy, unless it was a big brother's big sister's mentoring situation or family-related. Story 38. If it is really and truly platonic, then great. You have essentially got a woman who is not a relative to count on and give you an adult point of view and be a friend too. It's weird she would do this, but that's on her. I've made internet friends who were teenagers. I've even helped them write college essays, but the friendships were defined by boundaries of the online game we played and the fact that we lived far apart. So it can happen,